Pranger is at 7:30 on Wednesday, the 22nd. And I believe we have Spiritual Cinema on Friday. And Kay, I think you have a clip. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. I don't know, how many people here have heard of the runner Cliff Young? Yeah, because I had not. He's a huge celebrity in Australia. He's a 61-year-old man who trained in cow fields, he's a dairy farmer, to run an ultra marathon, 500 miles. And this tells his story. It's based on his story. The flyers you have, the man on the left is the actual Cliff Young. The man on the right is the actor who plays him. But it's a very entertaining movie and very interesting to see because it really happened.
Is called Cliffy.
I'm going to run the Sydney to Melbourne ultramarathon.
The true story of Cliff Young. Those of you who are runners probably know who he was.
Training to run 500 miles.
Well, 869k, yeah.
You're as mad as one another.
An inspiring story of a man who was a farmer and a vegetarian.
You need to average 125 kilometres every day. That's like 3 marathons back to back every day. Okay.
Who had a dream, who decided he was going to do something that no one thought he could do.
We're off.
Our
So please join us Friday night, 7 o'clock. We'll have some popcorn and candy and watch this movie. It's really interesting to see.
Thank you, Kay, for bringing Spiritual Cinema into our community. Very enjoyable evenings. Saturday, the 25th, is the adult field trip, and the final class for Story Up on that day. And I believe your final class on Journal to the Self is on Thursday evening, or Thursday afternoon, Kay?
I'm looking at starting a new, perhaps morning class in November. So if anyone is available and interested, please come and talk to me about it because I'll need to get it set up. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Next Sunday is a day that our first annual Volunteer Appreciation Day. And so I want to make sure all of you attend next Sunday because we're going to celebrate each other. We are a community of volunteers, and we could not be the community we are without all of you. So come and celebrate yourselves on next Sunday. Patrick asked me to make a short announcement. You can see Halloween is coming up next Friday, and just a word of caution, seeing how we live in the world but not of it, just make sure if you're passing out candy or if you have children that are bringing candy home that it is in sealed packets, and so just pass that along. And next Saturday, the 1st, we have several things, Women's Spiritual Conversation, Philosopher's Stone, and Family Games Night. So please sign up for that. There is contact information in the body of your announcements. We're doing, just a short reminder, we're doing the sign-up sheets per section. So we have one clipboard per section, and you can just pass it to the end of your row and then back if you can. There's also one out on the bookstore desk if you happen to miss the clipboards that go around. So it's time for our daily word, and Doris Buckley is going to offer the daily word for us today.
Good morning. Today is Sunday, October 19th, 2014. Today's word is being. Our affirmation is, my deepest desire is to know God. To sense the presence of God in my mind, body, and heart is not always easy. I may view God as a vast and powerful force in the universe, but God is also close and near. God lives within me. As I observe the intricacies of the human body and its miraculous healing power, I see the life of God expressing. As I witness the intelligence of the human mind, I am in awe of divine mind. As I experience the capacity of the human heart to love and understand, I am uplifted by the goodness of God. We are made of the very substance of God. We can meet any challenge as we connect with the power of God within. God is the life of our bodies, the intelligence of our minds, and the fulfillment of our hearts. Our scripture for today is Acts 17, verse 28. In him we live and move and have our being. Let us acknowledge this sacred moment by singing Surely the Presence.
Yes, God is present here and now. Yes, God is present in every moment, in every place. And in that awareness, let us pray. Father, Mother God, we give thanks for this opportunity to be open to the awareness of your presence in this moment. We allow this to be a practice for each and every moment of our lives. And in this moment, we breathe in to the awareness. We breathe out in appreciation. We recognize your love. We know your love again as we have known it in each moment of our lives. We know your love again right now. And in this practice, we know that we can know your love in every moment of our lives. And for those in our experience who seem to have a need for the knowing of your love, we hold them in consciousness. We see them blessed. We see them lifted. We see them healed. For this opportunity to recognize your love again, we give thanks. And so it is that together we say, Amen. Divine disorder. What does that mean to you? I had trouble getting up this morning. Actually, I didn't have trouble getting up. I had trouble getting started. So I was late getting in, and when I walked up the stairs, I saw Patrick working with the computer systems. Lo and behold, the computer systems were down. So congratulations, Patrick, on overcoming those variant electrons. And then I sat down at my desk, and I pulled up Google, or I tried to pull up Google. And Google was down. Horror of horrors. So I had to resort to Bing. Not a favorite of mine, but it's okay. It was useful, utilitarian. And I was recounting how this week has been really a series of seeming coincidences, but as you know, I pull my talks from the events of my life oftentimes. And this week I was speaking with my mentee, if there is such a word, the fellow for whom I am a mentor in the ministerial program, the international ministerial program in Hawaii. And I think I've mentioned before that when he prays, when he prays out loud, he offers this phrase: "May your life be unfold with ease and grace." And so we got to talking about this thing called divine order. And so I poked him a little bit about what divine order meant to him. I mean, we look around our lives and we see this out of place and that going wrong and those things over there not to my desire. And so, we look around our lives and we see things that seem to be in great disorder, chaotic even. And so if there is divine order, why can't I see it? If there's divine order, what's the mystery here? Why do I not have the privilege of seeing that divine order so that my life can be stress-free and I can go about my things that I need to do or that I think I need to do without a whole lot of stress? It would seem reasonable. If there is a loving God, why doesn't the God love me at least that much? Well, there is in this science of chaos is really something that's unfolded here in the last 30 years. In this science of chaos, we have been discussing over the last several weeks the activity that we see that seems to be chaotic is really filled with great opportunity. Last week we talked about the subtle influences that we can take advantage of in this state of seeming chaos. The week before we were talking about the power of vortices, and I used the image of a river that you go to a mountain stream and you stand on the stream and you see that, yes, indeed, there's a lot of seeming chaos in any particular area, but if you stand back a little bit, you see that indeed there is a pattern. I mean, first of all, the water's running from this side to this side, right? It's not going both ways, but it's going one way. And we also see that, where there are obstructions in the stream, there are swirls. In some cases, there are actually vortices, which seem to have a lot of power to them. And then there are eddies that seem to be going the other way. And then we can just imagine that there's all kinds of chaos going on in the current. Well, that's kind of the way I see my life most of the time. There are times when I see order in my life, don't get me wrong, but there are seemingly too many times when chaos seems to reign. Well, so Levitt and I, the mentee, Levitt and I were talking about divine order and the unity practice of praying for divine order. Well, is that something that needs to be fixed? I mean, if there's chaos out there, does that chaos need to be ordered, cosmoed, if you will? If there is chaos in our lives, is it there for a reason? Is it that we can possibly take advantage of what's going on in our lives, take advantage of the chaos? And 2 weeks ago, we talked about the vortices and how if we can get aligned with that, there is great power there. Last week, we talked about the subtle influences. And so this week, I'd like to talk about the question of fear as it relates to this seeming chaos. I mean, we seem to prefer, perhaps even bow down to order in our life. We talk about, here's my task list for today. I don't know about you, but I don't have one, but here's my task list for today. Here are the things that I need to get done in order for me to achieve what I need to achieve today. So we seem to elevate this idea of order as being superior to disorder. And even with great evidence to the contrary, we strive for order. We strive for order. We strive for order in various aspects of our lives. Now, that's not to say that order is inferior to disorder. It's only that order is often desired when the desire has no effect, right? I'd love to have order in my life, but my life continues to be chaotic. Maybe what we need to do, instead of desiring order. Maybe what we need to do is learn how to take advantage of the chaos. Maybe, in fact, when we fear chaos, maybe we should step back and recognize that there really is nothing to fear. Perhaps it's unpredictable. Perhaps the situation is going to unfold in its own way. Perhaps I'm going to have some subtle influence. Perhaps not. But why should I be afraid? Here's a passage that it's a little bit long, but I wore a red tie so that you will stay awake. In Matthew 8, verse 18 through 34. Now Jesus saw great crowds around him. He gave orders to go over to the other side, the lake. A scribe then approached and said, "Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go." And Jesus said to him, "Foxes have holes and birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head." Another of his disciples said to him, "Lord, first let me go and bury my father." But Jesus said to him, "Follow me and let the dead bury their own dead." Now, as I read this passage, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to relate it symbolically to your life. What are those things in your life that you would prefer to do, that is, to get done first before you encounter these activities of chaos? What is it that is in your life that causes you fear? And when he got into the boat, his disciples followed him. A windstorm arose on the sea, so great that the boat was being swamped by the waves. But he was asleep. And they went and woke him up, saying, "Lord, save us, we are perishing." And Jesus said to them, "Why are you afraid, you of little faith?" Then Jesus got up and rebuked the winds and the sea, and there was a dead calm. They were amazed, saying, "What sort of man is this, that even the winds and the sea obey him?" When he came to the other side, to the country of the Gadarenes, two demoniacs coming out of the tombs met him. They were so fierce that no one could pass that way. Suddenly they shouted, "What have you to do with us, Son of God? Have you come here to torment us before the time?" Now a large herd of swine was feeding at some distance from them. The demons begged him, "If you cast us out, send us into the herd of swine." And he said to them, "Go." So they came out and entered the swine. And suddenly the whole herd rushed down to the steep bank into the sea and perished in the water. The swineherds ran off, and on going into the town, they told the whole story about what had happened to the demoniacs. Then the whole town came out to meet Jesus, and when they saw him, they begged him to leave their neighborhood. Okay, let's take that last phrase. They begged him to leave their neighborhood. Here was a man that was demonstrating all kinds of miracles, right? Miracles that seemed to be impossible. And in fact, were probably, because they seemed to be impossible, they were probably used as a literary device by the writer to say, "Hey, look at this. This is a symbolic story," okay? But what we're talking about here is we're talking about fear. We're talking about fear in various aspects of your experience. And here is a man who's able to overcome that fear. And their last request of him was, "Get out of here." Why? Why would they end that? Why would the writer end that passage of demonstration of overcoming various aspects of the person's experience by saying, "Get out of here"? Could it be because they recognized that this man was demonstrating truth? That this man was showing them how to escape the fear in their lives, and they couldn't handle it. They couldn't take that responsibility. They couldn't let that teaching be present in their community. Get out of here. What you're telling us is that we have responsibility for our lives, that the stuff going on in our lives are not dependent upon that out there, but anything that goes on in our life, the fear that comes from it is our responsibility. You see, that even today, that is a fearful teaching. What? It's my responsibility? My life is my responsibility? It's not about what someone else did to me. It's not about the circumstances, not about my lack of funds. It's not about the lack of education. You mean it's my responsibility? Get out of here. I don't want to hear it. Well, when we look at chaos and we look at the river and we see the vortices here and we see the eddies here, you see, they all support each other. Right? A vortice that is going this way creates an eddy over here that's going the other way. And there is no space between the two. It's all filled with water. It's all filled with chaotic things going on in the current, but they all are self-supporting. I mentioned the book, 7 Lessons, the 7 Life Lessons of Chaos. And yes, I'm continuing using that as a resource. But in that book, there is the story of the Ojibwe tribe living north of the Great Lakes, north of Lake Huron in Canada. And the Ojibwe do not have a leader per se. Yes, they have wise elders that are consulted from time to time by those who are having difficulties. But they do not have someone called chief. And so when their society encounters, when their community encounters something that needs to be done, there is nobody to say, here, you take this responsibility and you take this responsibility, and I want you to go over there and check with that, and I want you to arrange this. No one like that. What happens is something that is very akin to chaos, and that is that there's some mumblings going on. He used the example of a council hall that had a roof that was leaking. And the people would get together in the council hall, and it would rain, and people, they would be getting wet, and there would be mumblings about, well, why doesn't someone do it, and dum. And finally, one day, one person up on the roof has a pile of shakes that he cut on the ground, and he's starting to rip off the roof. Well, someone else joins him. Someone else brings in another couple of bundles of shake, and pretty soon there are 10 or 12 people up on the roof working to get the thing repaired. Not because anybody said this must be done, but rather because one person said, I've got some free time. I'll go up and get started on it. Maybe someone will help me, maybe someone won't, but at least we'll get started on it. And so it is that over the course of several days, the roof is repaired and the community has a party in the council hall. Nobody said this has to be done, but rather it was just a community thing that it finally came together and was done. So he used this as an example that there are indeed various influences going on, and there was no direction per se. There was no top-down planning. I mean, we're used to going to work in a corporation or an institution, maybe even a small company, but even in small companies, there's somebody that writes the checks, right? And somebody that writes the checks has the responsibility for directing the resources that are within the organization, and so it is that we accomplish what needs to be accomplished. We are a society that reveres order. And we are a society that lives within this sea of chaos. So if we can learn how to, A, let go of fear, B, identify where the power is in our circumstances, C, if we can use our subtle influence step into whatever needs to be done, perhaps we are the influence that causes, that is the condensate that will create the solution to the problem. Well, we look upon our society and we say, well, this got done because of this and because of that and because of that and because of that. And in retrospect, we can see order in what is going on. For instance, yesterday afternoon, my grandson and I were out riding a bike. We live in South Boulder, and so we rode down to Pearl Street Mall and had a Ben & Jerry's ice cream and watched a fellow climb a pole, a 20-foot pole that was held by 4 ropes around the chests of 4 individuals. And Troy thought that was great fun. And if you're familiar with the geography of Boulder, South Boulder is about 300 feet above the Pearl Street Mall, which is down right near the Boulder Creek. And so getting down to the Pearl Street Mall is great fun. Getting back home is, well, I had to use several excuses for resting. One of those excuses was, as we were riding up Broadway, up South Broadway, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, it used to be called Bureau of Standards. But NIST is a big complex on the west side of Broadway. Turns out that on the west side of Broadway is also the location of the Arapaho medicine wheel. It's the south medicine wheel of the Arapaho Nation. And the north medicine wheel is up in Wyoming somewhere. But the south medicine wheel is located right there on the NIST campus. So using that as an excuse to rest, I said, Troy, let's go over and take a look. I want to show you something. So we rode back into the field, and we got off the bikes and carefully walked through the cactus back to what has been identified as the center of the medicine wheel. And I was talking about the marker stones that were to the southeast and to the northeast. And those marker stones, when viewed from the center of the medicine wheel, represent the sunrise in winter and the sunrise in summer. And that here we have this medicine wheel, which was really a timepiece, right? It was a clock that showed the Arapaho where to do their planting, where to expect the buffalo to come through, and so on. So there was the demarcations up and down the horizon from summer solstice to winter solstice. And I said, this is interesting. 200 yards to the north of the center of the medicine wheel of the Arapaho, their clock, their calendar, there is a laboratory that has within it an atomic clock. The atomic clock recently upgraded because the old atomic clock wasn't accurate enough. But the new atomic clock will keep track of time such that it needs to be reset once every 330 million years. It needs to be reset once in every 330 million years. It keeps track of time to the millionth of a billionth of a second. Okay? It's hard to fathom. But it turns out that we need to have time accurate to at least a billionth of a second for GPS to work. So here is the Bureau of Standards that has the cesium clock, and they're still working on upgrading it because once every 300 million years, what a bother that would be to have to reset that clock. So they are resetting, they're still working on a more advanced clock. But the point is that here we have a calendar that keeps track basically of weeks, right? It keeps track of days because indeed the sun arises each day in a different location, but finding the center of the sun when you're glaring at it and seeing it on the horizon, you can't really say, oh, well, obviously this is October the 19th. Yesterday it was one slice over to the side. Well, so here we have 2 clocks, and there was no one in the Arapaho Nation that said, what we need to do is we need to build a better clock. But rather, things happened that required greater accuracy in time. The Chinese developed a water clock. The Europeans devised the hourglass. And the Europeans, because they wanted to go out on the seas, an hourglass is really not that convenient. And in order to be able to navigate longitude, they needed to know the time. They needed to know the minute. And so that when a star came up on the horizon, they would know in a given minute, and it would locate them within several miles of where they were on the sea. So they needed to have a more accurate timepiece. And it wasn't because someone said, let's build a more accurate timepiece, but rather the conditions of their society required that technology be developed. And so it is that when we are in the midst of it, it seems like chaos. That this is happening, and that's happening, and this is required, and that's required. And so we start to develop these things to respond to these other things. But if we step back and we look back over 200 years, over 500 years, over 1,000 years, we can see the pattern. But in the moment, it appears to be chaos, just pure chaos. So the point is that we have the opportunity in what seems to be chaos right now to respond to what needs to be done in the way that it seems to need to be done. And it'll be corrected if it's not in the way that is most effective. We'll make it more effective. We'll make it better. We'll make it more accurate as the need arises. So when we look at this stream of events that goes on in our lives and it seems like chaos, maybe it's not. Maybe this disorder, this divine disorder, is not demonic disorder, but it is indeed divine disorder that is all there for a reason. Let's not fear it. Let's not push away from it. Let's not dig into a hole and bury ourselves, but let's look at what needs to be done. Let's respond to the moment. Yes, day timers are nice. Yes, having a task list will get us through the day with more things done, perhaps, than without a task list. But are those things the most important to be done? I don't know. I'm not saying throw away your day timer. You may find them very useful. But I find that when I step into the day and I open myself to guidance, I am able to respond more effectively than if I go to my Google task list. Yes, I do have one. That if I go to my Google task list and when the site is up, that I'm more satisfied. I'm more fulfilled. I feel at peace when I go to sleep. I don't worry about the things that didn't get checked off. Okay, maybe that works for you. That's great. Continue to do it if you want to do it. But I'm saying don't fear the disordered, because the divine may in fact have the best plan. We'll have our meditation. As we come into our meditation, let us come in with, I cast all my cares. I cast all my cares on you, God. I cast all my cares on you. And my burdens in your presence. I cast all my cares on you, oh God.
I cast all my cares on you, God. I cast all my cares on you. And even when I'm not sure what I should do, I cast all my cares
On you, oh God. As we breathe into this moment, as we allow the rhythm of our breath to dictate our clock, breathing in and breathing out, resting in the awareness that God is present. We allow this moment to unfold as it is. Not requiring ease and grace, but just awareness. Breathing in and breathing out. Allowing this moment in its fullness to blossom. Thoughts arise. They stream through our consciousness, and we let them go. Nothing needs to be done. Nothing needs to be done. No insights need to be experienced. The value of this time is not dependent upon the outcome or the results. But we just celebrate this flow of consciousness. Perhaps this is what is meant by ease and grace. Reveling in the moment. Appreciating the quiet. Appreciating the current, the flow. Notice the peace that you experience in this instance. And as we come back to this time and space, reveling in this peace, share the words of the Lord's Prayer.
Our Father, which art in heaven,
For those in our internet audience, thank you for being here, and you can also make your contribution at the donate button at the bottom of the player on the website. As we take our offering in our hands, let us bless them with this offering statement. Together, please. Divine love blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. I give in love because I trust in God. And once again, Trinity de Mask, irreverence.